Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Analysis. I'm your host, Mas Patel. We stand at the crossroads in history. Nearly 1 year has passed since the Syrian Revolution swept away decades of authoritarian rule under the despotic Assad regime. A year that promised liberation, dignity and a new dawn for millions of Syrians. But what's truly changed? Well, the streets that once echoed with chants of freedom now bear the scars of a terrible war. The dream of unity faces the harsh reality of sectarian divides and the fears of minorities. Reconstruction remains a distant hope as an economy lies in ruins, and the question of survival overshadows the promise of prosperity. Syria now finds itself in a delicate balancing act, joining the global coalition against ISIS whilst trying to assert its sovereignty in a region still gripped by uncertainty and the war on Gaza. And with the ongoing Israeli attacks in Syria, in Lebanon, a hawkish international community and a meeting with President Putin in the Kremlin, the backer of the old regime, these are all the challenges that the new Syrian leader has had to face. Washington was not missing out on the action, and in a symbolic moment, Syrian President Ahmed al-Sharaa, who was once on the wanted list of the CIA, visited the White House. Is this then the beginning of a new chapter in the most important relationship, which is the US-Syria relationship, or just another diplomatic gesture in an all too familiar turbulent Middle East? And this is what President Trump had to say way back on the 10th of November.
Well, I've had an agreement with him. He's a very strong leader. He comes from a very tough place, and he's a tough guy. I liked him. I get along with him. The new president of Syria. And we'll do everything we can to make Syria successful, because that's part of the Middle East. We have peace now in the Middle East, first time that anyone can remember that ever happening. And, as you know, Syria is a very big part of the Middle East, very important part. If you look back at Syria, for years they had the doctors, the lawyers, they had so many of the great intellects. It's an amazing place with great people, and we want to see Syria be successful along with the rest of the Middle East. So I have confidence that he'll be able to do the job, absolutely. We want to see Syria become a country that's very successful, and I think this leader can do it. I really do. I think this leader can do it. And people said he's had a rough past. We've all had rough pasts. But he has had a rough past, and I think, frankly, if you didn't have a rough past, you wouldn't have a chance. He gets along very well with Turkey, with President Erdogan, who's a great leader. Erdogan's a great leader, and very much in favor of what's happening in Syria. We have to make Syria work. Syria is a big part of the Middle East, and I will tell you, I think it is working, and really well. We're working also with Israel on, getting along with Syria, getting along with everybody.
Now, Syria's business sector eyes change as the US renews suspensions of some of the sanctions on the country. Let's watch this report.
Syrian businessman Bashar Azar, owner of an import and export company in Damascus, said on Wednesday, November 12th, he eyed changes following Washington's suspension of the imposition of Caesar Act sanctions on Syria. The proof is the activity at the ports. There is a difference, Azar said, 2 days after the US Treasury Department's announcement, as US President Donald Trump and Syrian President Ahmed al-Sharaa met at the White House. Trump vowed on Monday, November 10th, to do everything he can to make Syria successful after landmark talks with Sharaa, a former al-Qaeda commander who until recently was sanctioned by Washington as a foreign terrorist. Sharaa's visit capped a stunning year for the rebel-turned-ruler who toppled longtime autocratic leader Bashar al-Assad and has since traveled the world trying to depict himself as a moderate leader who wants to unify his war-ravaged nation and end its decades of international isolation. One of Sharaa's chief aims in Washington was to push for full removal of the toughest US sanctions. While he met with Trump behind closed doors, the US Treasury Department announced a 180-day extension of its suspension of enforcement of the so-called Caesar sanctions, but only the US Congress can lift them entirely. Mahmoud Toran, an economic and political advisor in Syrian affairs, said the move reflects a significant progress in the relationship between Syria and the United States. Trump met with Sharaa in the first ever visit by a Syrian president to Washington, 6 months after their first meeting in Saudi Arabia, where the US leader announced plans to lift sanctions, and just days after the US said he was no longer a specially designated global terrorist.
بعدها نفس الاسلوب نفس الطريقه عم نشتغل انه كيف انت بتدبر حالك من عن طريق مصارف وبنوك بتشحن وخطوط شحن بتغيرها او المصارف. لحد هلا مثلا المصرف السوري ما بيقدر يطلع لك سويفت دايركت من حسابك تحط انت بحسابك وتحول. بعدنا عم نستخدم مصارف خارج سوريا، دبي، لبنان، العراق، كذا، كل العالم، تركيا. يعني الوعود اللي عم تشوفوها بدها شوية وقت، بدها آلية، مثل ما تسمع إعادة أعمار، بس أنت فعليا لسه العالم ما عمرت حجر فوق حجر. إعادة أعمار يعني تهيئ. يعني عم نشوف حركة بواخر وحديد وأسمنت ومواد بناء، يعني صار في تجهيزات بسوريا إن شاء الله بتعمر سوريا، بس لسه ما بلشت. يعني كله تجهيز، كله تجهيز يعني تحضير. فالموضوع منه يعني كبسة زر انه قالوا شال العقوبات رح تغلي تلاقي الفرق، بس من البداية والوعود في فرق طبعا. والدليل هو حركة الموانئ، انه في فرق. مثلا هذيك السنة ما كان في عندنا بواخر توصل، هلا في بواخر عم ترصف وترسي وعم ينزل حنطة حديد ومن كذا جهة عم تجي. هذا دليل انه بلشت تحل شوي العقوبات.
First of all, the suspension comes as a continuation of the previous suspension. I think it was 6 months ago, and now it's the second suspension. Of course, it's a lot better than not having that decision, but again, it is not a repeal of the sanctions. So the law is still in place. The law cannot be repealed unless Congress votes and unless it goes through the congressional process, which is going to take some time. But we have to look at it from a different prospect. Since the first suspension, what has happened in the relationship between both countries? There has been a significant progress in building the trust level between both countries. Bank transfers is not as easy as people can think it is. Even using SWIFT platform isn't a very simple thing. It's not that you're using a platform whenever you need. This is a far larger and complex process. For instance, banks in Syria need to establish correspondent banking relationships with either Europe, America, or anywhere else they would like to deal with. Having that relationship will also require certain guarantees to guarantee these, to cover these transactions. So banks in Syria need to either replenish their balances abroad, or secure credit lines with correspondent banks to keep the transactions flowing.
So, joining us to discuss this is Dr. Nizar Tobe, a Syrian political activist, and joining him is Tarif Kashahne, a Syrian analyst from Damascus in Syria. Welcome to you both, Tarif and Dr. Nizar, to the show. Let's start off with you, Dr. Nizar. You've been with me on many a discussion and a debate, certainly when the revolution was culminating towards the overthrow of Assad. A year on, the country seems to be relatively, certainly a lot more stable than it was perhaps even 6 months ago. Is that because Syria is now getting back on its feet?
Thank you very much, Mas, for having me once again. Today actually marks a year on since the military operation led by HTS, which started on 27 November 2024, so exactly 1 year ago, which this operation has led to the liberation of Syria on the 8th of December 2024. So we are approaching 1 year from the liberation. The new government led by Ahmed al-Shara has actually achieved unbelievable and outstanding, amazing achievements. I can count until morning for you, but most important, the most of the sanctions have been lifted, mostly by the US. There was in total 2,879 sanctions placed on Syria since it was started since 1979, as old as 1979, and most of these sanctions either lifted or suspended. So the only big struggle now is what is remaining is Caesar law. Um, so um, I'm not sure if you're still hearing me.
I am, yeah. Look,
Okay.
I was just
So
giving you the
Caesar law,
initial opportunity to just say your
yeah.
piece, and then
So Caesar law, the only thing, the only big thing remaining from this, and Caesar law, I have from very special sources that this will be next week to be finished. It will be basically removed by the Congress. Possibly in the next so next week it will be discussed and then hopefully finished and signed by the president in the next couple of
okay.
weeks
Thank
until
you.
mid-December. So also one historic visit to is the first Syrian president in history that actually visited the White House. This has never happened before in the new histories in the last 100 years. Also, Trump actually has met a Sharia 3 times in 6 months, and I think the fourth time will be coming soon,
Well,
most likely.
yeah, absolutely, and he's played basketball as well with some quite famous American
Yeah.
figures. Dr. Nizar, I'm going to just ask you to pause there. Tarif Kashani, Dr. Nizar describes it as unbelievable, unprecedented achievements. Some would say that sounds like propaganda. What's it like in Damascus? Does it sound what he's saying? Is that reflected for the people in Syria, in Damascus?
Thanks for having me, and thanks for Mr. Nizar.
Yes.
Actually, in Syria, there is very good, especially in Damascus, there is very good improving in services. Lights are more common in the roads. Most of the people start thinking how to develop their businesses and doing some new maybe channel for this importing or exporting things. Yeah, everybody start feeling happy. The colors of the faces of people are changed now. It's becoming more red and with some hope. All this you can see it in the eyes, in the road, in the schools, everywhere. So this is becoming before regularly starting from the last 3 months. There is a good improvement in electricity, but still the internet is a little bit weak. That's I'm facing now.
And
Everybody
Darif,
now.
are you able to critically analyze the performance of the government? Can you criticize government officials? Can you say you obviously think he's doing a good job, but can those who say he's not doing a good job, can they say that openly? I mean, how is press freedom in Syria?
Actually, in the last few days, there's the more of the people start feeling some kind of fear because there's somebody calling for demonstration in the
Yes.
coast, in the Syrian coast. But the success of the general security to protecting the demonstrations and doing very great job, and they are really recognized as heroes. This is because of their attitude with the demonstrations, and they are also try to protect them from any unknown fear. So this is making us more happy that we are under a good security forces,
Sure.
and they are
Okay.
becoming more and more doing great jobs.
Okay, Darif, I'll pause you there. Dr. Nizar, it all sounds like, with all due respect, it sounds like an unbelievable thing for somebody to say that Syria's, this is unprecedented, the best ever it's ever been. Surely, Dr. Nizar, there must be something that the government's doing wrong. It almost sounds like what's typical in the Arab world, which is the government's great. Let's look at our leaders and how much of a great job they're doing, as opposed to saying, well, actually, these are the problems in our society and we need to critically analyze them, and he needs to start delivering on this, because that's the general accusation which tends to be thrown by those who are very cynical about Arab regimes and how they approach people. It's always like you have to not speak against the leader, and you've got to be in abeyance to the leader, because otherwise you are going against the nation. Almost like, in some respects, what's happening in the West as well. With Trump and America First and the pro-nationalist forces in Europe. Dr. Nizar, it cannot be the case that this government is just doing and it's getting it right across the board everywhere. Please tell me.
Of course, I totally agree with you, because this government is far from perfect, because we cannot actually we cannot be yesterday under Assad regime, which is fully corrupted, and then wake up suddenly with the new government and to become Switzerland with all the civilization, all the corruption-free government. This cannot be the case. It will take time.
Dr. Nizar, with respect, I think that's probably not entirely correct, because you already have a civilization. You told me on many occasions that Syrians have centuries-old culture, civilization. You're linked to the Palestinian, Jordanian culture. You're all one people, effectively, and one culture. And that culture is, when we look at Palestine and we look at other places, it's a very sophisticated culture, much more sophisticated than I might ask the Gulf Arab states. You are you have minorities. You have people who do not follow the faith of Islam and follow other faiths. So my point is, Dr. Forgive me, because obviously I need to have some challenge to my guests, otherwise it'll sound like we're all agreeing with everything. My point is, a year later, whilst you feel more happy and secure in the fact that Assad and his criminals are no longer running a narco state, and obviously some sanctions are being lifted, what are the challenges, Dr. Nizar? Tell me what the challenges are and what you expect the government to do. That's what I probably want to hear more.
So the challenges are a lot, actually. We still have a lot of economical situation to deal with. The reconstruction mostly. Your guest Tarif just mentioned about the internet. The internet also, there was an initial agreement about Silk Link, which will be a very big line from Lisbon to Damascus. Will be fiber optic internet, and this will be, it may be able to supply, in addition to Syria, the many parts of the Middle East, including Turkey, Jordan, Iraq, etc. So there are a lot of challenges. The situation is not in pink. Obviously, what is most important, and this is counted for the government. I mean, I cannot say it is not counted, because only we want to criticize. So the demonstration, more than it has exceeded demonstration. It has exceeded 1,000 demonstrations for different reasons. Some of them asking for improving the economical situation. Some of them asking for even releasing the criminals from some minorities, like Alawite minorities, because most of the criminals, and this is a fact, I'm not talking sectarian, but this is a fact, that most of the criminals were from the Alawite minorities. So there was a lot of demonstration for different purposes, which exceeded 1,000 demonstrations, and nobody harmed them, or it's the opposite. A few days ago, the security forces were actually protecting the demonstrators,
Dr.
whatever
Nizar,
whatever their demands.
Thank you, Dr. Nizar. I
So
appreciate.
I think we are moving towards improving. It will be slow but stable.
Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Nizar. I mean, Tarif Kashani, sorry, we're coming towards the end of the program, and I do apologize for not giving you as much time as I would have wished. But you said the security forces are protecting the demonstrators, but minority groups would disagree with that. They say, you know, the regime, as they would call it, actually was responsible for a series of pogroms against the Shia minorities belonging to the same caste as the Assad regime on the coast, and yet those who perpetrated those attacks have still not been brought to book, even though Ahmed al-Shura has promised this. And the Druze are obviously, well, some of them are relying on the Israelis to provide support. So whilst the main thing in your country is about food, shelter, and clothing, I suppose, you know, the basic essentials, to bring all of society together, do you think Syria is well equipped to doing that?
As we know, and Dr. Nizar said that nothing will happen immediately. But also there is some things that should be done very quickly. Now the government facing a very hard pressure from Syrians to start the traditional justice procedures, because this will release all the timber and all the pressure from the other families who they lost their kids and their savings during the war, and until now there is no any justification for their losses. So and even the criminals, most of them are free and looking this, making a lot of pressure. This is one
Okay.
of the things that we are
Doing.
worry about. If there is any loss for timber from these guys, will start doing personal attitude to return back his rights
Okay.
and what he lost.
Thank you for that.
This is one of the fear, and this is one which is make us most of the society fear from these actions to
Okay.
be start and doing some illegal
Darif
tasks.
Kashani, thank you so much for joining us from Damascus, Syria. Dr. Nizar, very quickly, I asked you last time, are you going to Syria? You told me that you were. Have you been to Syria now?
I have, and actually you interviewed me while I was in Syria.
Oh, of course,
last
I do
time.
remember. I remember. You joined me from Syria. How was your visit? How was your visit?
It was wonderful, unbelievable. I couldn't believe that I could see my family again. I was extremely happy, and it's a lot of joy. Everyone is very much optimistic. I know they still having many things still needed, like, as you said, like food, like shelter, like clothes. But what is most important, they have their dignity now. This is the biggest gain. We have our dignity back,
Okay.
and nobody can take it away again.
Well, on that point, Dr. Nizar,
we are determined.
On that point, Dr. Nizar, on a very more hopeful point, I will say we've come to the end of the show. It's nice to hear that Syrians are recovering themselves. Obviously, some hard questions for both my guests. It's our job to do that. We have to hold power to account, and whilst they weren't speaking for the government, challenge is always very good. My views are obviously my views, but we're here to do journalism, and I hope both of my guests will join us again soon to speak more about Syria as we approach the first year anniversary of the overthrow of the Assad regime. That was Analysis. I'm Maz Patel. Thank you for joining me.